Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, sustaining Alaska's pipeline and its operations today and into the future.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider with you on this 25th of June. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with your local weather information. And for many of you in the interior tonight, that could mean a scattering of thunderstorms and a lot of thunder and lightning around your region. If that's the case, it's time to make sure the kids are inside, you're away from windows and doors, and make sure you're staying off of electronics and perhaps the phone, things that are connected to a socket. It'd be a good idea to stay away from that for a while until the weather settles down. Now, we're not expecting severe weather, but lightning can travel more than 10, even 12 miles away from a thunderstorm. So your lightning safety rules are usually a good idea to remember that once you see or hear lightning or thunder, stay inside for about 30 minutes until that thunder and lightning has last been spotted or heard. And in some cases in the interior, that could take a while this evening to achieve. So just be extra careful. And remember, lightning is dangerous. We don't talk about it a lot here in Alaska, but it is a national problem as far as weather safety goes. So just remember that, especially here in Alaska, lightning can kill. The weather info line is open at 800-472-0391. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. And if you want to head over to the websites, you can check out some of the new information that's available. Our websites are kind of getting revamped as we get into July 6th. We've been talking about it for a little while, but the addresses to try are w2weather.gov/AFC for Fairbanks, w2weather.gov/AFG, and Juneau, w2.weather.gov/AJK. Now, on July 6th, this is going to magically show up on weather.gov the same way you always get there, /Anchorage, /Fairbanks, /Juneau, however you like to go there. And it's all going to appear on that website. These are kind of the test websites here. So we're asking for you to go out there and try it, poke around, see what happens, find the information you need. If you can't, let us know. If you break it, let us know. If something isn't where you think it ought to be, let us know so we can fix it before July 6th, okay? So we're asking for your help, and we hope that you'll check that out and see what you think. Here's a look at the fire danger. Things have changed a little bit in the last 24 hours around South Central and the Anchorage Bowl and the Susitna Valley. Rainfall yesterday kind of eased up the fire danger just a little bit, but you'll notice not a whole lot's changed around the Copper River Basin, around the middle and into the lower Yukon valleys there, as well as the Kuskokwim and out around the interior of the Seward Peninsula. Still looking at some relatively high fire danger there, if not extreme fire danger. And so my question tonight for you is, if you are under widely scattered thunderstorms in your region, keep your eyes open for new fire starts or smokes. And if you see anything, if you notice anything strange there after those lightning strikes have ended and the thunder has dissipated, let your local officials know if you see something that might be burning there, because that would certainly be a possibility with a number of strikes being seen across the Alaska Range today and across the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range. Here's what we're watching for. Watch for these areas of white to blossom in the daytime heat. And what we're looking at here is a large cluster of thunderstorms across the Yukon Valley, into the middle Yukon Valley, across the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range, and across the upper Tanana Valley here. A lot of activity this afternoon. As you look out into the Bering Sea, a broad area of low pressure spinning more stratiform precipitation or rainfall across southeast and across the northern Gulf Coast, but everything across the interior today is convective. That rising bubbles of air there like a hot air balloon or an upside down waterfall, helping to produce showers and thunderstorms in many locations, especially north and west of the Alaska Range. Now, a different feature you're seeing here on the visible satellite picture is this very smooth, kind of buffed out view of cloud cover. That stratus or low fog deck is showing across the Bering and carved out where stable air is drying things up across the western Bering for high pressure here, but then just kind of smashed down to the ground and kept from bubbling up across the southern Bering and the northern Pacific. Beautiful stuff, very different from what we're seeing in the Bering to the interior to the Gulf of Alaska today, and only on the visible satellite picture. On the infrared satellite picture, we get a little bit more of a glimpse up north, and you'll notice once again, weather's moving in from west to east. There's another cold front coming. That leading edge of colder air is approaching the Chukchi coast. With that comes an opportunity for rain, and just a little bit further offshore, probably mixing in with snow north of Point Barrow. And you can see once again that spiraling or cartwheeling action of the low pressure system across the Gulf, slowly kind of drifting eastward ever so slightly, but it is pushing another round of moisture east and northeast. And as that approaches from the west, the next wave of colder air will probably initiate another round of showers or thunderstorms once it makes it into the interior later on in the week. Here's where we stand right now. Low pressure sitting across the central Gulf at 1,005 millibars. You can see pockets of rain, if not occasionally heavy rain around Cordova earlier today. Thunderstorms are scattered all over across the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range, down the Yukon River into the upper Kuskokwim Valley, and north of the Alaska Range. We did have a few strikes around south central, but by and large, the main activity today has been in Alaska's interior. High pressure sitting across Point Barrow at 1,013 millibars. We also have a ridge of high pressure poking its way up into the Bering at 1,025 millibars. It's considerably stronger. And here's the colder air trying to work its way across the Bering Strait tonight, and that will continue trekking south and east as we go into the overnight hours. Now, something else that may continue are those showers and thunderstorms tonight. Of course, we have plenty of daytime heating because daytime is, well, nearly 24 hours right now for some of us, and so there's no loss of solar radiation that can keep these things going. So as long as there's enough energy and juice to keep that going, those showers and thunderstorms will be right there and drifting around for a while. So it may be a loud night for a few places there, but eventually some of this should ease up a little bit. As we get into the overnight hours, that cold front should make its way under the Chukchi seacoast. Showers are certainly possible there and across the south-facing slopes of the Brooks Range. For southeastern Alaska, the Panhandle is looking at light rainfall there, even as high pressure sitting very close to Haida Gwaii. That's helping to feed moisture northward, especially into areas around Yakutat and Cross Sound and perhaps into Haines and Skagway as well. By Sunday, some of that will start to ease up just a little bit, but look for areas of light rain or drizzle to continue across the northern and eastern Gulf Coast into the afternoon. For the afternoon, for the interior, all the way from southwestern Alaska along the Alaska Range, northward into the Middle Tanana Valley and to the Alcan border. Once again, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms will be possible, but there is a new change there. As this colder air drops southward, it's going to help lift more of that very wet air right up against the eastern Brooks Range slopes. As that happens, there could be some periods of pretty heavy rain there. So if you have friends or family that are out backpacking or perhaps hunting up in the eastern Brooks Range, if you can get in touch with them and say, hey, watch out, there's going to be some heavier rain coming. We don't have any warnings or advisories out, but it could bring some of those local streams and rivers up fairly quickly. And if you're not prepared for that, or if you're camping by a wash, which is usually not a great plan in this kind of weather, you might not be prepared for those quick rises. So if you have a way of getting word to them, that would be probably a wise idea at this point. High pressure north of the Bering Strait is going to bring in some cooler weather to the north slope, and there's that mixture with rain and snow there north of Point Barrow. High pressure still in charge across the southern Bering at 1,023 millibars, and again, that will lock in some areas of low clouds and fog. You'll see that from Monday all the way from the Gulf of Anadyr down through the Aleutians. The ridge shifts eastward just a little bit, still holding at 1,021 millibars, feeding in moisture across the Alaska Range once again and into the upper Yukon Valley. And that means a better chance for widely scattered showers and storms again by the afternoon. Another disturbance coming in across the western Bering rates only 1,000 millibars by Monday, with low pressure in the Gulf still sitting firm at 1,014 millibars. Pockets of rain and drizzle continue mainly across the outer coast for Monday and southeast. Current temperatures today made it into the 50s and 60s for the southeast region around Haines and Skagway, slightly milder there, cooler in the capital city. Sitka around 54, Ketchikan and places down south, generally in the mid to upper 50s. Hyder was 61. 54 and wet today in Cordova, and Valdez was 57, also wet. 68 degrees around Wasilla was 65 in Anchorage, 71 around Talkeetna late today, 70 closer to Tok and Northway, 78 around Eagle, 77 in Fairbanks looking northward and west. Tanana hit 82. It was 79 degrees in Fort Yukon. Northward still, we see even cooler weather as you get to the Arctic coast. 30s and 40s there, 39 in Kaktovik, 40 in Barrow, 53 in Kivalina, 53 in Kotzebue, 50 for Shishmaref, and our friends in Nome showed 57 late this afternoon. The warmth here across the upper Yukon Valley, or the middle Yukon Valley anyway, was part of the reason we're getting such a widespread area of thunderstorms this afternoon. South and west saw temps in the 50s and 60s around Norton Sound, 59 at St. Lawrence Island. Bristol Bay closer to 70 degrees late today, and upper 50s and lower 60s for the Alaska Peninsula. Cooler in St. George, only 48 there. Cooler still in Shemya at 46, and Atka was 45. So there is cool weather under that ridge for sure. Overnight lows in the 40s and 50s for most in Southwest, the Peninsula and the Chain. 49 in Nome, 36 tonight in Barrow. You can see that cold air is coming back. Lower to mid 50s for many across the middle Tanana Valley, 57 in Fort Yukon, closer to 50 degrees for Fairbanks. Parts of South Central in the upper 40s to lower 50s, 53 in Kodiak, and low 50s for Southeast with highs there tomorrow closer to 60 degrees. South Central back in the lower 60s tomorrow, closer to 80 around Fairbanks, and Tanana probably looking at almost 80 degrees, about the same for Fort Yukon. 30s and 40s for the Chukchi Seacoast. The Beaufort Seacoast could be warmer around Prudhoe Bay, 53, 55 in Nome. Kotzebue looking at temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Southwest, upper 60s to about 70 degrees around Bristol Bay, King Salmon, and Dillingham. 51 in St. Paul and Dutch Harbor and Unalaska, closer to 60. Flying weather shows a broad area of IFR just grazing southern southeast. Most of what we'll see for IFR will be out in the Bering and the central and western chain and the Chukchi Coast tomorrow. Watch out for convection starting early or continuing overnight. It'll be back in the afternoon. IFR for the Beaufort Seacoast, for the outer coast of southeast, and again for St. Paul, St. George, and the central Aleutians for your Sunday afternoon. Past conditions, we're watching for showers and thunderstorms in Anaktuvik Pass, but expecting mostly VFR there and for Adigan Pass tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass watching for showers and thunderstorms to develop. VFR there and for Rainy Pass as we go. Windy Pass expected to be VFR. Isabel Pass also rated at VFR tomorrow with rain and thunder possible. Mentasta Pass also watching for convection, but VFR through most of the day. Same goes for Tanita Pass as we see. And Portage Pass we expect to see MVFR, not expecting rain and thunder there, or for Chilkoot and White Pass also listed at MVFR. The cool pool aloft is sitting right across the Gulf of Alaska, 6,000 foot freezing levels and below there, and you can see the incoming wave of colder weather working toward the Chukchi Coast. Levels there dropping to below 6,000 feet, with heat still holding across the Bering with levels there above 12,000 feet. Icing potential has light to isolated moderate across south central, the Copper River Basin, and all the way through southeast, generally above 8,000 feet. We have another pocket of icing that's generally light west of Wales and Tin City, about 10,000 feet or above, and some other areas across the North Pacific as well. Our main threats will be convection across the interior and southwest tomorrow. Low pressure in the jet stream is driving these weather changes. It's bringing in that cooler air across the north and eastern coasts of Russia, dropping that southward across the west coast of the Bering and getting energized by another fast-moving river of air coming into the Arctic coast at 50 to 80 miles per hour. Southwesterlies continue at 30,000 feet over southeastern Alaska. At 9,000 feet, our ridge of high pressures showing clearly here across the Bering. You can see wind speeds are fairly light on the west side and coming down the west coast at only about 15 knots or so. Across the interior, wind speeds running between about 5 to 15 knots, a little bit faster across the north slope at 20 to 30 knots. Our circulation across the Gulf bringing in southerlies across the outer coast and northern Gulf Coast, anywhere from 15 to as strong as 35 knots. At 3,000 feet, wind speeds are a little bit lighter across the north and eastern Gulf Coast. They remain light across the interior, only 5 to 10 from the west, and winds across the north slope also slow down until you get to areas around Kaktovik and the eastern Beaufort Seacoast around 25 knots. Northerlies across the west coast and the Capes are also light at 3,000 feet. Turbulence, we'll be watching for areas across the northern coast below 4,000 feet. There could be some areas of chop there. Nothing too substantial. Again, we're still keeping an eye on the Alaska Peninsula below 4,000 feet. And as that frontal boundary moves in across the Chukchi Coast and the western parts of the Beaufort Seacoast below 4,000 feet, don't be surprised to get a little bump and thump there. Look for some areas of convection, of course, to develop in the afternoon for many across the interior all the way down to southwestern Alaska. Let's look at your aviation forecast, your ice update, as well as your marine weather's coming up here in just a few minutes.
The fire safety goal of landscaping and maintenance is very simple. Reduce the amount of fuel immediately surrounding your home. However, this doesn't mean your landscape has to be barren. Some plants are more fire resistant than others. One of the most important things any wildland homeowner can do is to create a safety zone or fire break around the house using these fire resistant plants.
And there was still some brush that was potentially close enough that could have caused my house to go up if I hadn't taken that out. So it's just keeping that perimeter wide and keeping it free and the cheatgrass down very, very low, I think, is what saved my home. It gave the firefighters of the perimeter that they needed to get up in here and even do whatever defense they could do to help, you know, any potential engagement with the fire, because at least they had some room to work.
Your safety zone can consist of numerous varieties of plants, including grasses, border plantings, flowers, and vegetables. Check with your local fire officials about the best species for your area. In most areas, a safety zone should be cleared away from your home for a distance of not less than 30 feet. As the slope of the lot increases, additional clearance as far out as 100 feet may be necessary. Clearance also depends on vegetative conditions that provide ladder fuels that enable fire to climb into trees. Trees and shrubs are fine as long as dead or low-hanging branches are removed and the height of ground vegetation is controlled. Be sure to remove all tree limbs around your chimney, as well as any dead branches that may hang over the roof. Accumulated leaves, needles, and other dead vegetation should also be removed. Beyond 100 feet from the house, dead wood and older trees should be removed or thinned. Consult with your local fire officials for specific guidelines appropriate for your location. Keep an eye on any limbs that may come in contact with power lines. If you're not equipped to trim them yourself, call the power company and let them know about the hazard. When it comes to routine maintenance, remember to sweep your gutters, eaves, and roof on a regular basis, especially during the hot, dry weather of the fire season. Tender, dry needles and leaves are a fire waiting to happen. Although it's very convenient to stack firewood under the porch or under the eaves, it's not in your best interest to do so. To say the least, you're inviting trouble. Stack your firewood well away from anything that's combustible, including fences and outbuildings. Outdoor incinerators or burning barrels for household trash are illegal in many areas because they generate wind-blown sparks. If they are allowed, a permit is usually required, so you need to check with your local fire protection agency about laws and ordinances. Your home should have at least 2 ground-level doors as safety exits in case of fire, and each room should have at least 2 means of escape, including a door and a window leading to the outside. This is especially true in bedrooms. Install as many smoke detectors as local regulations require, and ask your fire officials to help you plan and rehearse a home fire escape drill. Regular home fire drills can save your family in an emergency. If you do all these things, especially clearing the safety zone around your house and building a fire-safe roof, you have an excellent chance of protecting your home and family against wildfire. But can these simple precautions really yield such dramatic results? Yes. In fact, the real-life experiences of those who have done these things seem just short of miraculous.
Well, each year I'd taken an axe and cut out the brush and was just cutting that out from around the house in order to make it easy to take the cheatgrass out with a weed eater, a heavy-duty weed eater. And then every year I just kept increasing that distance out from around the house, never knowing how much was going to be enough. You've got to keep that brush clear away from your home so that the fire doesn't have any chance to get up against the side of your house.
The smoke seemed to build up quite a bit, and then I noticed about 10 fire engines coming up the street, and I ran out with the children and said, what should I do? And they said, as quickly as possible, evacuate the house. I looked down at the house, and there were about 200-foot flames almost surrounding the house, and I was sure at that time that the house was gone. A few months before the fire, we heard that you should make sure the sagebrush is cleared away from the house, and he just thought, well, we might start doing that in case there was a fire.
This is beautiful country. It's a privilege and a pleasure to live here. And with that comes a responsibility not only to protect our own property and the safety of our neighbors, but to preserve the resources, the wildlife, and the natural beauty that belong to everyone. Thank you for taking time to watch this program. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call your local fire department, Wildland Fire Agency, or state forester. Your efforts do make a difference.
Here's a look at the sea ice edge. Not a whole lot's changed since yesterday, but remember, with a stronger push coming in from the west, we will see a lot of the ice or anything that's loose and broken off in that more open area move from west to east. So watch out for shore-fast ice, or ice that is not shore-fast, I should say, moving around even more and becoming even more unstable than it already is. Out across the east in the open waters that we notice north of AKwx to Dead Horse, a lot of this will be moving around as well with stronger southeasterly winds tomorrow. Here's a look at the flow across southeastern Alaska. 15 to 25 knots expected on the inside, with 3 to 4 foot seas for most areas, 5 foot seas once you get to the Lynn Canal. Southerlies working up the outer coast from 20 to 25, 8 foot seas in all areas for Sunday. And by Monday, winds are subsiding somewhat, 15 to 20 knots on the outside with 6 foot seas in all areas. On the inside, look for winds to come down to about 10 knots around Stevens Passage northward. Lynn Canal winds still up around 25 knots with a 5 foot sea, and northwesterlies in Clarence Strait 20 knots with a 4 foot sea on Monday. For South Central, look for light and somewhat variable winds inside of Cook Inlet and west of the Barren Islands with a 2 foot sea there, and for most of Cook Inlet. For Shelikof Strait, northeasterlies, a 20 knot wind gives us a 5 foot sea. Northeasterlies inside of Prince William Sound up to 15 knots, and 20 to 25 knot winds from the north and the east across the northern and western Gulf, with seas ranging around 6 to 7 feet for most areas. For Monday, winds subside across most of the Gulf. Areas outside of Prince William Sound should hold on to easterlies around 20 knots with a 5 foot sea, and the winds will shift to the east around Prince William Sound and diminish as well. 15 knots elsewhere in the western Gulf, 4 to 5 foot seas there, and we still have a light and somewhat variable wind around Cook Inlet, west of the Barrens, and into Shelikof Strait that becomes a little bit more of a northeasterly wind with a 4 foot sea. Bristol Bay should see a southwesterly flow at 10 knots with a 4 foot sea on Sunday. Otherwise, northwesterlies down the coast coming in around 5 foot seas expected there. 4 foot seas on the Pacific coast and more of a northerly flow west of Castle Cape. On Monday, that northerly flow continues with a 15 knot wind, 4 foot seas there. Southwesterlies continue into Bristol Bay and more of a light and variable flow on the southern end of the Alaska Peninsula with 3 foot seas on either side. For the Aleutians, northwesterlies around Unalaska to Nikolsky, 15 to 20 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas there on the north and south side respectively. Southeasterlies across Kiska and Attu with a 15 knot wind, 4 to 5 foot seas there. And you can see that process kind of shifting around here for the central chain from Nikolsky to Atka with 10 to 15 knot winds. For Monday, more of a south and southeasterly flow starts to take over more parts of the central and western chain. Winds out in the west come up to 20 to 25 with 5 to 7 foot seas there, 15 to 20 knot winds across the central and eastern chain. And winds will be a little more variable across Unalaska and Nikolsky with a gradual shift becoming southerly as we get into Monday night and Tuesday. For the west coast, southwesterlies from St. Lawrence Island to St. Matthew and north of Nunivak Island, 15 knots there with seas as high as 7 feet in the west. Westerlies into St. Paul and St. George with a 3 foot sea. Northwesterlies south of Nunivak Island with a 4 foot sea into the Kuskokwim Delta. Those winds become southwesterlies as we get into Monday. Look for 3 foot seas there. Northerlies developing out of St. Lawrence Island and working their way southward, but southerlies are on the return for St. Matthew, 20 knots with a 5 foot sea, and westerlies again for the Pribilofs. With a cold front coming in across the Chukchi coast, we're going to see the wind shifting around across the northwest coastline as we get into Sunday. Northerlies from Cape Lisburne southward at 15 knots, southwesterlies from Point Ley to Barrow, and east and southeasterlies for the Beaufort Seacoast at 15 to 20 knots, 3 foot seas around Kaktovik and just west. For Monday, winds flip around to more of a westerly flow at 15 knots there. South and southwesterlies return across the Chukchi coast, looking for 15 to 20 knots with 3 to 6 foot seas at their highest west of Point Hope on Monday. That's a look at your marine forecast. Let's recap what's going on around the interior of the state. Showers and thunderstorms are fairly widespread across the Yukon Valley all the way into the upper Kuskokwim and the south slopes of the Brooks Range. That trend may ease up a little bit overnight, but there still will be thunder lightning activity in the morning. Cold front coming in from the north and west will move into the Chukchi coast, bringing rain and much colder weather. Showers and thunderstorms will be back in the afternoon for the interior and along the Alaska Range, and look for light rain across southeast.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
When shopping for your family's meals, do you know where you can find Alaska-grown products? Everywhere. They're available at your local grocery stores and farmers markets across the state. Alaska-grown products are fresher and more nutritious, and buying local helps grow our economy. So just look for the Alaska-grown label when you shop, or ask your grocer where the Alaska-grown products are. Remember, Alaska-grown. It's closer, fresher, better.
And it's all alive.